is, he might have a conflict. No. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong slide. Oh, so he may have to do lamps. He might have a conflict. All right, it's time. We will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. This is the MILE working group. So hopefully you're all here to listen about MILE. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just the note. Well, I'm not going to read it to you. This is just to make sure we're following processes and procedures, which hopefully you're well aware of. Next slide. Okay, so agenda bashing. So we're going to go through the status for a few minutes. We'll probably need to update the milestones depending on the CSERT draft. We've got updates on the XMPP MILE, XMPP grid draft, which is in IESG review. Is that how you would classify it?
Yeah, it's past ISG review and you're dealing with comments, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, there's still one discuss
I
that.
think the answer is probably not likely, but well, I'll need to ask a few extras, yes.
Yeah.
Well, do your best. If there is a set of RFC editor notes, the difficult part, I asked Benjamin yesterday to update, and he said, yes, half of my issues were addressed. Here's the remaining. So if you can either revise the draft or give me a set of RFC editor notes, which is pretty much the same. I know it's a bit of a rush.
I will try. Hopefully Peter will help me.
But obviously I cannot control whether Benjamin has time before planning tomorrow.
Yeah, because he was the last discuss, I think.
Yes, correct.
Right, because Ben cleared it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in the process of writing the Shepherd, and I have a couple comments that I've been talking to Take about on the JSON IODEF, so he'll provide some updates on that. And then Stephen, you'll talk about the Rolly CSERT, which we did adopt as a working group draft, I believe. And so we just need to get our milestones updated accordingly. So hopefully we should have ample time and maybe let you guys go early. So with that, want to thank folks for volunteering ahead of time to make this go smoothly. So thank you, Stephen, for being our Jabber scribe, and Dave and Chris for being our note takers. Are you guys going to use Etherpad? Perfect. All right. So Take, why don't I let you do the status?
Okay.
And then, because I'm going to talk about the
Okay, I understand. So this is a milestone. As Nancy has already told you, we have only 3 months left. First one is XMPP great. That's already in the IEC review stage. The second one is the JSON IODEF draft. Working group last call was ended, but after the Shepherd writing, I have to review and revise it. And finally, we have to discuss on the timeline for the Rolly draft. So currently, this is a note from the previous meeting. In the previous meeting, we said we will have a working group last call by April 2019. That's coming pretty soon. Would you like to change it, or would you like to keep it as it is? It's up to maybe the author, Stephen, maybe.
Are Mike and Wei in the room? We sadly don't remember which Mike and Wei volunteered. I think for the minute takers, if you can help us by writing their last name, that would help us chase them down. Well, so next time, I learned that in TEEP, it's like we need to get the full names. Okay, so we'll we'll need to ask again if we can get a couple more reviewers when we get the update. Yeah, there's many mics. I know a couple of ways. That's why I don't know. Okay.
So is anybody, we can discuss on that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the first agenda. It's XMPP draft, please.
No, this is, sorry. I don't need to do that. And freeze. Punishment for standing here is, this is running cold air. Okay. Yeah. So I think I only did two slides anyway. So next slide. Okay. So in the IETF call, we received quite a few comments and one individual comment. Most of them were good. There were 2 or 3 discusses. So thanking my co-author, Peter, and I tried to go through respond to all of them. So Edgar had to discuss. I think he's satisfied with all of the comments, resolutions that we provided for his. Ben had a couple more clarifying questions this week, which we responded to. Peter's in the process of updating the text, which seems to satisfy Ben Ben Campbell, right?
It's Ben and Benjamin.
I'm glad you
So Ben,
yes. Okay.
But the confusion will go away.
Yes. But Benjamin had a couple more list of things that hopefully Peter will help me address. So from the main categorization of the updates in the draft, basically we didn't put the mandatory to implement specifications, especially on the authentication mechanism. So we clarified that. In the security considerations, there were quite a few comments with respect to the PubSub and the discovery mechanisms of what happens when the discovery list may be insanely huge, which in the implementations that I know of hasn't been the case because security information only come from a few. But nonetheless, we put guidance there to optionally use JEP 059. Also, with the use of the PubSub mechanism, which again led to the discovery of how does a subscriber know where to go? And this was Eric Riscola's comment of, how do I know what the data model is? And it's that's just the nature of how XMPP works. And he seemed fine. I think we added one clarifying clause in the draft for that. I think the biggest one that I wanted to discuss in the group was the notion of, is this a standards versus informational? Because we didn't do a formal consensus, and I should look for the chair for that. So we wrote stronger language, I think, in the introduction, that I kept calling it a mapping. And Peter said, well, Nancy, it's the applicability draft. It's an applicability statement, which makes it a proposed standard. So we changed the language in the introduction to say this is this is an applicability statement for how you use XMPP to carry security information. So the proposal is still to leave it as a standards, but Alexa, you commented, and I think it's fair to have that discussion here, which is, next slide, please, which is why I left it as here's the rationale for why it remains as a standards proposal, but I wanted to just close it and have the discussion here. Right.
Alexei, I think it's obviously sort of a edge case here, because if you have a strong feeling as editor and as the working group one way or the other, then
it
probably can be accommodated.
Okay.
If you're flexible, like if ISG was more, saying, no, this is really informational and you don't mind, then it's just easier to change it to informational and be done with it.
I mean, personally, I don't care, right?
That's not a bad position to be.
Right. So if there's pushback but it was the discussion I had with Peter and it's really an applicability. So just leave it as a standard.
Hi, this is Stephen Banghart at the mic. So it was like 2 IETFs ago that I gave the commentary that there wasn't a lot of normative language, and I've read it again, and it's a lot better now. So I think just from my perspective, I'm kind of in the flexible camp as well. I think it's at the point now where I personally would not oppose it being standards. I think it's gotten normative enough that at least it's there. But that if I was going to pick one, I would probably say informational. But at this point, if it's standards, that's fine. So count me as flexible.
Sorry, I'm being devil's advocate, just not as a director. Again, because you actually describe, you put requirements on pieces that needs to be implemented. It's not just pure XMPP, right? You require a set of extensions,
Right.
which are normative.
Right.
That makes it quite, more.
Right. And again,
standard.
I had help from my co-author Peter in saying, and that's where he pointed out the applicability statement and clause. So, okay. So it sounds like we'll leave it as, oh, sorry. Yep. Okay. There's still at one discuss left. Benjamin's.
So you also have the opportunity to discuss with Benjamin and say, can your changes be after the approval in an RFC editor note? That way you don't have to go through the cycle again. So you can hit the approve and send an RFC editor note with the last set of changes. Or say this will be done, since this is agreed upon, it will be done in Auth 48. So you have those options. So you don't have to go back through the whole process again. I know you know this.
Yeah,
But it's not for me to say.
Yeah.
it's absolutely fine with, you revising the draft is the best. If you don't have time, set of RFC editor's notes will do. My question, I don't know the answer, is will Benjamin have enough? Will he be happy with, either trusting me to deal with the rest, or just say, will he review it before?
Okay. So admittedly, I'm chairing 3 groups. 2 of them are today. I have one more on Thursday. I may have some time. I haven't even had a time to closely read Benjamin's email because it was a bit long. I know he provided some suggested text in the beginning, but there was a long prose further down. That's why I say I don't know if I can get everything done today, but I can try.
Yeah, until we go to stage.
No, but then Ben has to read it, right?
Yes.
So I have
Yeah.
less time. And I only saw his discuss this morning.
Okay.
Ah.
Right. If you run into him, I suggest you just have a quick chat saying, is he happy with the set of RFC editor notes? Will he have time? That might short circuit. If he doesn't have time, well,
Okay.
or if he does, then we can try to figure something out.
Okay. I will try and see if I can force running into him today.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hasn't been his first term, right? So the idea is to talk about what happens.
This-
Obviously, no fashion cycle, so it was needs
Yeah. He might or might not know. I can tell. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
so
I think he probably knows that positions and discussions of other ADs leaving are expiring. But can we quickly go into data track and have a look how many positions are on the document? that might actually answer the question. That's all right. Yeah. No,
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're trying to simplify.
Yourself. Yes, sir. Right. So actually, there are 14 positions on it, and 3 people are leaving. Actually, we are sort of okay still. 10.
What's that?
Now we're getting into a little ISG little tricks section. Well, basically, I think 3 people are leaving ISG, so their positions will expire.
Right.
And you need at least 10 yes and no objection. I think we'll still have 11.
Okay. Well,
So-
Ben was kind enough to say you can ignore because I'm leaving, but then we addressed it, and so
Yeah.
he changed it. Right.
Yeah, but the point is his position wouldn't. I think it's the right thing to address his comments anyway.
Yep.
But his position wouldn't matter as far as
Got it.
official process is concerned on Thursday.
Okay.
I like the RC.
Yeah.
So do I put the RFC or
No,
do I
you
ask
tell me.
Benjamin?
I
Okay.
had RFC, but he still needs to review.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about comments. I think there might still be some comments that might be worth addressing, but this can be done in RFC.
Well, no, I mean, we want to
Both.
address Benjamin's
Yeah.
comments. It's just a question of timing. Right.
Try to run into him and ask him whether he has time and whether he has a preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. That's all I had.
Shall I put it to the test?
Do you want me to bring them up on this one?
That's okay. Should be somewhere. Okay.
Oh, perfect timing. Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah, we only need one.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys sign the blue sheets, by the way. Blue sheet. Perfect.
So, okay, let me talk about the update of the draft on the CBO bindings of IETF. So, I have only 2 slides. One is the status update. A working group last call was conducted against the 07 version, and it's completed. And no objection or no comment was provided actually. So, but according to the Nancy, we still have to modify the draft, especially for the IR section. For this, I want to discuss a bit in the next slides, whether we really need IR section or not for this draft. And also, one update is a converter. In the previous meeting, we are discussing the converter as a possible implementation, and that's already updated to the GitHub. You can access it if you want. And the last one is the errata of ROC 7970. It's a bit enormous. So maybe we want to have a clean version if possible. Is there any way to make a clean version of RFC 7970? If there is, I hope we can modify the text for the RFC 7970. I think we have more than 10 errata, so it's easy. It's not so easy for asking review on the JSON draft.
Next.
Do we have a way to have a clean version of RFC 2019-70? You know, my draft is having mapping between this draft, this RFC, and yes. So how can I have a clean version of the RFC 7970? Okay. Can I, or should I ask Roman, or who can do that?
No, you can as the author.
Oh, no. For this one, this is Roman's one. Are you already Horizon 2?
You can get the text, and so or the XML from, this is Kathleen Moriarty from the RFC. They'll tell you how to get it. I think the editors can get it easily, or I mean, Roman could download it, but you could ask the RFC editor to not bother the busy new AD.
Okay.
But he's efficient anyway, so.
Yeah.
The final version though is held with the RFC editor.
Okay, so let me confirm my understanding. I just have to get the XML from RFC editor and try to modify that and send it to Roman and get approval, then send it back to the RFC editor. Is that correct?
No.
Does the
No.
RFC editor copy have your file?
Yeah, should. Right, can we pull it up?
It's his computer. It's in Japanese.
Sorry. So this is a page. So many errata here.
Yep.
So what I want is a clean version.
Yeah, he's saying there's 10 more that he wants to put, which will make it very unreadable. So it makes sense because most of it is the XML.
Because I have to ask Hank to review my CBOL, but Hank did not want to follow all the errata, I guess.
So you're doing a biz of this.
Of 70, well, so there's two drafts he's referring to. 7970 is already out. In the process of in the process of mapping it to JSON.
Yep.
And CDDL JSON, right? They found more errors on 7970. Okay, to get a review of the JSON CDDL mapping, the folks that are trying to read 7970 is saying it's almost unreadable. And if you're going to add more, it would be better if you just republish a clean with the errors fixed in the 7970.
So what I would do is I would file all of the errata so you have the record,
Mhm.
and then the experts approve or don't approve, and then you do the while you're working on the biz, right? So that you have those approvals, and then you could figure out, is this worth changing status on the document or just publishing it as a biz, and those types of things. So you
Yeah,
can
so-
publish it
so-
as a biz or leave it as a draft, just correcting it. I would imagine you're going to publish it.
So we could do a 7970 biz, which is a complete rewrite.
Yeah,
we
and
can
you
do
can
that.
make it simple of just doing the errata, but I would file all of the errata
First, okay.
and then the experts, in the mailing list, basically will be asked to approve each of these.
We can't close the group yet.
And no, this is a fast way to do it. So the reason
Okay.
why I'm suggesting this
Uh-huh.
is because then when you go through the document review, it's all going to be on verified errata, right? So
Yep.
it's a really simple
Okay.
IESG review in that regard, because it's all verified errata as opposed to just random mistakes.
Okay. Can the note takers please note that?
And so, yes, you'd have to see if Roman wants to be editor, Honest Hill, or co-editor.
Okay.
or how that would
understand.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let me just talk about IANA section. This is only the issue I want to get some guidance from you guys. So I'm just wondering whether we need an IANA section or not. The current draft has a CDDL data model in the draft. It's already embedded in the draft. So, and also CBOB IODEF draft is currently not defining any new value because this CBOB IODEF draft is just a mapping binding to the RC 7970. So we may not need to have a IANA section at all. But sometimes people want to have a CBOB data model as a complete file. For this purpose, maybe we can register CDDL model in the IANA repository, or we do not we do not use IANA. We have two options. I wonder which way would be the best way for us. Do we need to register the data model as a separate file in IANA, or do we not have to register the data model in the IANA? That's something I wanted to hear your preferences.
Chris Inacio, does this actually work? Because all of you can't hear me because the room's so big. But the IODEF, the XML version isn't registered, is it?
No.
And so if you register this model, then you diverge?
The namespace is registered, right? So here the clarification and part of it is ignorance on the chair's part is I'm still trying to read the CDDL and the CBOR draft, which has gone to publication now, right? So the way I read that, it's really more of a structure. So I think of it more as an information model. And so using CDDL with JSON instantiates the IODEF namespace into a data model. So from that perspective, I don't believe you need an IANA registry. In looking at, so the only other example that I saw was the concise SWID draft, which does have registries of fields and tags that may be extensible, like types and versioning. And so that's where I was suggesting to Take, to the authors, right? If there's the notion of wanting to build extensibility, do you then want to create an IANA registry in the CDDL JSON, right? So that then when you want to rev IODEF, if you want to create new structures, you can do that and then register them through the IANA process.
See, I would not be in favor of that unless you also create a way to do the updates to the XML or some way to keep them in sync.
And that's the guidance the author is asking for.
So no registration to the IANA in this case, right?
Well, it depends on how aggressive you want to get to your updates to 7970.
Right. So I think, so this is Nancy speaking as an individual. So what I think I'm hearing you say, Chris, is if there were any other extensions that you wanted to make it in IODEF, which is 7970. Don't make it in the CDDL, is the
Right.
way I would interpret it.
Yes.
Right.
Because if you create the registry, they'll definitely diverge.
And that makes complete sense, but I'm doing the Shepherd write-up. I'm trying to provide the feedback. Yeah.
I agree.
Dave Woltmeyer. So the example you gave was with CoSWID.
Mhm.
So what we're doing with CoSWID is in the ISO document, we're working on an update there. We're going to point to the IETF or to the IANA registries so that whenever the IANA registry gets updated, both the XML version and the CBOR version will be able to effectively stay in sync with the two. So I think what Chris is suggesting, doing it in a way that both the XML and the JSON version could benefit from that, I think is the way to go. Or else you get divergence where you can use one value in JSON, but then that value is not valid for use in an XML, and that's what we were trying to avoid by taking things up that way. Makes sense to do it that way here, probably too. Although it would be a heavier lift to do it that way. Hi, this is Stephen Banghart at the mic. I just wanted to ask a quick clarifying question. The IANA registry, Dave, that you're talking about is the tag registry, right? Or is this an actual schema registry?
No, we have some valid values lists that are used, for things like entity roles and version schemes and things like that, which are similar to the control vocabularies that exist in IODEF. So we're using an IANA registry so that new ones can be added through extension at some point down the road, that those values can then be picked up by the corresponding formats.
Okay, so but what I'm hearing from you is that you're really asking this last line in option 2, a separate CTDL model file improves its usability. So to me, it sounds like what you're asking is about having somewhere to have the entire CTDL file available for download. And you're thinking maybe you could put that entire CTDL file on an IANA registry somewhere. So I think we're talking
But
about
that's-
some different things.
But
I got that statement too from what Take said. But if you leave it IANA, then are you going to have it as IANA as just hosting the file, which they can do or effectively, or are you going to have it like with an expert review or something like that, which means it could be updated
well, you would
outside?
have to create a full process, right? So whenever you create a new registry with IANA, you have to define the process of what happens when you create a new one. You need to assign experts, review. Right.
So I'm just going to answer just this last question on your slide here, referring to the actual file itself. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say option 1. I probably wouldn't upload the full CTDL file on an IANA registry. It's more common to find the full schema for formats like this just in the appendix of a document. And then what's pretty common to find is that ends up uploaded a lot of different places anyway on the internet. And so you don't really have to worry about it. So I'm going to say option 1 to this question here.
Thank you. Very clear to me. I understand everything. Yes.
Any other feedback?
Thank you very much. I think I understand the way forward. Thank you.
All right. So you guys will see me post as the chair, the write-up and recommendation, plus some other, I'll probably find a couple other nits. But the draft will have guidance as to no IANA registry, effectively. Right.
Okay, this is Stephen Banghart up at the front mic now. My presentations tend to go over time, so I'm going to go really fast this time. I just uploaded the Rolly CCERT draft again with no changes just to get it updated because it had expired. There's one last thing I would like to change, which is to update the format usage section because we found a new way of organizing that section when we did some work of the software descriptor. And I think that using that same format in this document would make it much more readable. So I would like to make that one last change to CCERT. And then it's ready for last call, as far as I'm concerned. Next slide. There's one last thing we need to decide here as a working group. We had talked about briefly in, I believe it was London, I suppose, but the possibility of splitting this draft into 2 different drafts and adding in domain-specific language into each one. The first draft being IODEF and the second draft being for sticks. We're at a point now where I'd like to bring this conversation to the group and pick one of the options. There's a really short list of pros for each one. So this should be a pretty simple discussion. There's not a lot to explain here. Option A is we last call the document as it is after I make that one final update. The benefit here in my mind is that we can get this published sooner. We can get it done. And it's out there and ready to use. Next slide, please. Option B, we split it into two separate documents. The benefit here is that we get more domain-specific text built into the document that gives us more explicit support for some extra features around sharing IODEF and STIX files using Rolly. Of course, the kind of implicit con, it's kind of made clear on both of them, but it's going to take a little bit longer. Somebody needs to write the texts for all of that, and obviously I'd be happy to do all of it. I have to reach out to some domain experts in IODEF and STIX, respectively, to complete those sections. So we need to pick option A or option B. So Kathleen.
Kathleen Moriarty, or option C, what about the standard that's being used a lot in Europe that's gaining a lot of traction? So one thing that was discussed in the Karis workshop was adoption and problems, and IODEF and STIX were both in the problem area. So maybe adding this other one that actually, that's a really great question, Dave. Anyone else remember?
What was the question?
There's
some new transport.
Okay, so Chris is looking it up. No,
Not new transport, sorry, some
format.
new format. Okay.
So one of the conversation pieces discussed. So if we were to do, IODEF and something, or do both of those, should this other one be done since it actually has adoption, and it's been being used within Europe? I think Miriam brought it up in her TF Cert report, and so it goes back to what do people actually exchange, and I think it was more focused on indicators of compromise than more fuller events,
Okay.
which is done by both IODEF and STIX. So
Yeah, that's
could we do this other thing too? Is that worthwhile?
right. So for the
And
first
maybe it
question,
is, especially if this is what you're using for SCAP 2.0.
right. So to answer the first question of can we do it, I would say absolutely. The two information types that we're talking about in this draft is both indicator and incident. So it sounds like this would fit more into the indicator of compromise category, and it's worth looking into. So right now we just have a kind of list where we say, here we're going to talk about STIX, here we're going to talk about IODEF. It would be really easy to add into this document, let's talk about this thing. I would need to talk to somebody who knows about it. And seeing as we don't know what it is at the moment, I'm guessing that we probably don't have anyone in the room that knows about what it is. Dave.
Dave Holtzmeyer, we took a note to look up what the format is. But we could always just do an update to the draft at some point to add the additional data format in. The option D could be publish this now, and then if there's interest in adding this additional format, we could do a short update. I mean, it would be like a 3-page draft to do that.
Status of the working group would be my only question if it's closed by then. So is it easy to just do this now and be done?
Right.
Yeah, and that's something we're gonna have to figure out. If I could get minimally a couple hours on the phone, maybe twice, with somebody who understands this format, that would probably be enough information to at least get a basic level support for that format in this document. Obviously, the more cooperation I get, and I'm going to go over time anyway. This is what happens.
Yeah, well, I'm going to cut you off. So I think the intent of the document is to show how you can use Rolly for CSERT using IODEF and STIX. So
it's to determine how you use Rolly in CSERT, full stop. IODEF and STIX are not part of the purpose of the document. They just happen to be two of the ways that you would use Rolly in a CSERT. If this is a third way that you would use Rolly in a CSERT, I think it falls under the purview of the document.
I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying it shouldn't be a stopping gating factor.
Yeah. And I mean,
It's a chair statement. For some reason, I'm not seeing what you guys are typing on Etherpad, but that's okay.
There are two different servers, and we're not sure which one is the right one to use. I think there's
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
always
think
go to
The
tools.
secretariat should probably be notified about this, but yeah, there are two different servers, and it depends on which site you go through to get which one.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay,
I see it
so
now.
I need
Thank you.
working group guidance on how to go forward with this. I heard at least one person, Kathleen, have interest in adding this third format to the document. I would say that I have interest in that as well, but I'd really like to ask the working group and the chairs on how to move forward with this document. I see probably A, B, and C, where A is publish it now, B is split it up, and C is let's add this third thing and then publish it.
Well, it's C and D.
Oh, and Dave's D. Yeah, that's right. Publish it and then release an update. So those are the four options. What what do people think? What we should do? What do the chairs think here?
Well, first question is, we first need to identify what that third one is. Were you able to find it, Chris? Yeah, oh, sorry. Do you have her PowerPoint? No? Okay. From the Karis workshop.
No, so this was during a breakout session, and we were discussing adoption of standards. Do you remember
See, because
that?
the only
so I
one I
just
know
looked
is
at the
OpenIOC, which isn't big.
No,
And
no,
it wasn't that.
No, it wasn't. It was something I hadn't heard of before. She's here. I've seen her. So I can ask her. It's not in the minutes. We do have recordings.
No, that's a lot of recording to listen to. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's move on. Okay. Option A is keep everything in one document, stick with just IODEF and sticks. Option B is stick with just IODEF and sticks and split them into two documents. I'll make option 3 is one document. Sorry. What did I say? I'm just like,
Dave Wolfmeyer, can this be posed as two questions? The first being,
that's a fair point.
do we keep it as a single document? Do we split it? And then the second is,
Do we include the new one or not?
include
Yeah.
do we
Okay.
have time to do that? or not?
All right. So let's do with the first one. Do we want to work? Okay. So let me just ask it once. And I'll ask it this way. Not to show preference. Does the working group object to keeping it in one document? No objections?
I don't object particularly.
Okay. That's a way of doing A and B. So you don't split. You just have one document.
Okay.
Okay. So we can confirm that on the list as well.
Yes.
It's easier if I ask it that way. Okay. Second question. Does the group want to include the third? The problem is we don't know what the third one. Does the group want to include a third example that uses a well-known indicator?
And maybe the way to phrase this, given that we're not 100% concrete on everything, is are we going to look into adding or spend some work on or something like that? I'm not sure.
Jessica Fitzgerald. Okay, could we phrase it as, do we object to publishing with two and revisiting the third option once we know what it is?
That's a good way of. I was just trying to give him quicker time.
Could we, Dave Waltmar, could we just set a date maybe and say, are we willing to accept additional contributions until X date, after which we'll move forward with the working group last call?
No, don't.
We just have to.
No, we're just noodling.
So
Well, let's do the sidebar as an author.
right, that's
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a cutoff date? I mean, I was just going to say you need to know that by the end of this week since she's here, right? Don't take notes here. Kathleen, can you help find out what that third one is by the end of this week? Okay, if you can, then let's just do what Jess suggests, so we don't even have to do a vote or question. So let's just proceed with you with one document. Once we find out the third, let me give you time, and then you come back in the mail list and say, I'd like to include a third.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
And Kathleen, if we miss that cutoff and we have to just move forward with these two, and then we can sit down and write just a new document on this, especially if it's getting a lot of adoption and it's something that, we think is important, we can figure that out at some other point.
Well, let me know the third one, because I can ask my team too, because a lot of adoption may just be in Europe, not. Yeah.
Okay.
So so I'm aware of this system. I can't remember the name. I know a little bit about the history. Well, so the Belgians built a system including this format at a NATO exercise, and NATO adopted it. And now a bunch of the European NATO countries have started using this. So from a previous, working on documents as a working group shut down, the chairs can talk to the AD, and it can still be a working group document that, right? You guys know about that process. So
Yeah,
as far
because
as-
it would just be one document.
right, as far as working group shutdown.
Because the
that's a
list
blocker.
stays alive. Yeah. No, my main concern was to try and be able to get the document to publication before we shut down. And in order to do that, I want to make sure you have a draft that's ready so that I could do the last call and get 2 volunteers again, people that I know how to go chase
The
down.
last names of people we know the last names
At
of.
least
Yeah.
with last names.
That's right.
Right.
I'm happy as an author with the current plan of doing what we're doing. So I think that's good.
Okay, so we can do a last call on this one unless you want me to wait for the third one. That was
Let's wait until the end of the week and then last call, right? Because we want to wait for that third. Isn't that what we decided with the cutoff there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Don't note that. Well, I guess you should.
I just took a note here. It says, Kathleen will find a new format and email the list before the end of the week. Stephen will move forward with a single draft, allowing some time to include the original format. Is that enough?
That's enough. If you're going to add the new format, it doesn't make sense for me to do a last call until you have that drafted.
Agree.
And then working group last call will be on the next version.
Whatever that may be. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through this really quickly. This is actually very related to this thing. I just submitted a Rolly draft for vulnerability. It's something that we're actually working on implementing at NIST for the NVD. This is something that is highly relevant work for us since it is about publishing CVEs as well as the there's a draft NISTer 8138 on something called the vulnerability description ontology that is also a potential way of describing a vulnerability. So these are things that we care about, and we're currently working on figuring out how they're going to fit into Rolly. If there's other vulnerability formats, those are also things that we're looking at. So I just submitted the 0.0 of the draft that talks about how to do those things in Rolly
This week, because I am.
this week.
Yeah.
Like hours ago. My question to the group, to the chairs, with the context of group status in mind, is this work that we think is valuable being done here? I mean, we're implementing this. I suppose we could do it as an experimental. I suspect that there's probably some other people that care about it. What are the thoughts?
I think this is really good work. I'm not talking about this is good here, mine or not, but our organization is watching this automatic description ontology actually for the purpose of deriving CVS score automatically. The current one is not useful. The current NVD description is not useful, but VDO that provide a lot of useful information that's really usable for the machine learning. So I really hope this can be advanced further. But I'm not saying here is good or not. It can be second or any other places. Thank you.
Right, and that's ultimately my question. Is I'm going to keep working on the draft, regardless.
Well, you're gonna, if you want it published, you need a home. So I was looking at the charter, and it is part of the charter.
It is.
So we have to pose the question to the group, if the group has interest in adopting this as an item. In Mile.
Right, and I do want. I mean, it's something that we're doing. We're interested in. We're actively working on as NIST. It's something that Taki has expressed interest in. But I do want to be sensitive to the group status.
Okay, so let me just ask the group. Is the group interested in working on this document? Can I get a raise of hand? Because the humming won't work here. Are you interested in Mile?
Okay.
Are you raising your hand? Yes, you want to work on it in Mile? Yeah. Well,
Dave Woltmeyer. I think I just heard Jess say, and I'm saying the same thing. I think this work is worthwhile to do.
Right.
We need to find a home for it. This seems like a natural home.
this is the natural home. And I mean, if we have work to do, we have work to do. I won't shut the group down. And I didn't mean shutting the group down as a threat, but
This is, for what it's worth, I think this is a really tiny extension. So
Yeah.
I think this
It
could
should
be
go
done in,
fast.
like weeks.
Yeah.
If we make
it's a separate draft. No, it just means the reason why I'm asking is we're going to need volunteers. I'd like to see at least 3 reviews. Well, I have to ask first, is the group interested? And the answer is yes. Who would be interested in working on it, as in reviewing, unless you want co-authors?
I'd be happy to take one if anyone's interested. But,
Is anybody interested in working on the draft as a co-author?
But I wouldn't be offended if no one wants to.
Dave Woltmeyer, I could either help or review,
You're in the same organization. But
which means might be better if I help.
okay. But that's just showing interest, right, in working. And then who would be willing to review the draft? Okay, you have your 3. Take.
With last names.
Yes, with last names. Jess and Kathleen. Luckily, I know them, so I know where to find them. Yeah, people in the RATS group know I nudge. Kathleen knows I nudge.
Yeah, and so this is short. I mean, it's like the third,
Yeah.
if not less than that, of the CSERT document. So I don't suspect that this is going to take very long. So.
No, but once it goes to Shepherd, they want to see that there's been review,
of
that
course.
there's been interest in
Of
adoption.
course, I was just reassuring the chairs that it's not going to keep us open for another 4 years.
No, you're not creating frameworks or anything. No.
There's no
I would be
information
like,
model. We're safe. It's okay.
Hush.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. So we're not ready to do a call for adoption yet because it's new.
On the vulnerability. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's posted. It's pretty 00E00 at the moment. I have a whole bunch of updates queued up.
Okay. So
Dave Waltermeyer, in the interest of time, could we do that on the list? Maybe
Mhm.
in a
yeah.
few
So
weeks?
Few weeks, yeah.
So you guys are preempting me. I was going to say, Take, Kathleen, and Jess, if you can provide preliminary review on the 00 draft, right? I can put a call for adoption, I suppose, since we're interested. Well, I'm contemplating.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways of doing it.
I could just do a call for adoption now. Since you guys are interested, is there objection to just adopt the draft as a working group draft? No? Okay. So just churn it into a mile draft.
Okay.
And then,
I like that better because that gives me a little bit of time to put out a new version before people start to review it. I mean, it gives me like a bonus week or two, which would be helpful.
Okay.
If it's already adopted, then we have a little bit of time to work on it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's no...
Okay. So churn it over to mile. And then Jess, Kathleen, and Take, once you see it up on the mile, if you can do a review, then I can do a last call after they review.
Okay, sounds good.
And then if there are no objections, then
Okay.
I guess I'm shepherding. Would you like to shepherd? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Okay, so that gets us to now, we need to review the milestones, right? What's the bling? Oh, it's your laptop. Alexi wanted, so our AD wanted us to look at our milestones. So, no, you can stay there. So for the CSERT draft, we're waiting on the, okay, so I will give you, and you're one I have to nudge, and I have to be nudged. So this is going to be interesting. Take, you and I need to remember that we'd like to do a last call. Do you think you can put the third one in by end of April? That only gives you 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah? So one of us has to do the last call. Okay. Okay, so if we do a last call by April, maybe by Montreal, you could have April, May, June. If you do all of the comment resolution by Montreal, we could potentially get it shepherded by Montreal.
Yeah, that sounds entirely doable. I'll get the update out depending on the status of the conversations we'll have about this third thing. Get the update out. Be ready to working group last call it on the mailing list early April. I'll do all the conflict comment resolution before Montreal. That all sounds
And then we'll,
perfectly reasonable.
okay, so now, given that I don't remember which mic it was, or Way, do you know how to reach Way? If you can reach him. Okay,
I'll just start asking mics until one of them says yes.
Mike Jones, actually.
Was it Mike Jones?
Review CSERT draft, the early CSERT.
I haven't seen him this week. Yeah.
This would have been at Bangkok.
See, I thought it was
This happened
Mike
before I was
Jenkins,
there,
but
so.
We could maybe find the report.
It could have been Jenkins. It's possible.
We could just say that.
We could just say it was Jenkins.
okay. Could we get another person in this room to volunteer to review the draft? This is the CSERT
extension.
draft.
This is the one that may or may not include the third European thingamajig.
No.
There's like a really
The-
long appendix with examples.
This will be by June, Kathleen. It's whenever we do the last. So I'm not expecting to do the last call until end of April. Okay. So if you can note, Kathleen will also help review that draft.
We can assign this for
That's only. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so Taki, if you can ping Wei, we at least have a second with Kathleen since we can't remember the mic. I do encourage others to review, by the way. I have to review a Shepherd, so I can't count myself.
Yeah, last call.
Well, we didn't get any when I did the last call on the JSON one. That's why I'm like trying to make sure we have people. What's that? But I didn't ask for volunteers because we did it on the mail list. Right, he was ready. So, okay, then on the vulnerability draft, we have the 3 volunteers. And so on the vulnerability draft,
Yeah, it's just vulnerability. It's not it's not verified.
yeah. How much time do you guys need? If we give you till the mid-May, is that okay to review? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have that
And-
file updated version.
Mm-hmm.
Weeks of those. That gets them
Okay.
a lot of
So I'm trying to remember my preference, doing the working group last call right before Montreal, just to give you time
the new draft.
for the vulnerability.
Whatever works for you.
No, you have to react. You were really hard to nudge. You have a legitimate excuse because you got married, but okay, so let's just say you'll rev based on comments, right? So that we can do a working group last call sometime end of June, July. So you and I will have to coordinate, right? And so maybe we'll be ready to do moving it forward to IESG by August. How's that? And we could potentially do the same thing with the CSERT draft. You found it.
Miriam did, of course. And the answer is MISP, M-I-S-P, www.misp-project.org is the format.
So now we're information sharing.
Okay, that's malware. That's not incident.
It's exchanged.
So the CSERT draft
It's adopted.
incident and indicators. It's just a few minutes.
It's an okay, that's fair. Okay, so So Stephen, I just suggested that we can follow a similar path with the CSERT draft. If we can get review by May, we can do working group last call before Montreal, and we can post the publication by August. You are back.
I'm back.
I feel bad saying you're not going on a honeymoon.
I'm here now.
So you're here. Okay. And then the JSON IODEF is already in the Shepherd, so that's not the long pull. We should be good. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can update the milestones for this. Any other business? No? Going once, going twice? I get to give you some time back. I think we're done. Thank you. I ran us. I'm sorry. That's what I get for running 2 meetings back to back. For some reason, I thought we had until 12:30. I was on the Etherpad tools.
Yeah.
And
I'll post a copy out there too, just so.
well, no, I mean either one is fine. No. The mapping was fine. It was if you wanted to create an IANA registry, then you needed to be very definitive. Right. But now you have no problem.
Thank you.
So I will send so I need to finish